Hello, today I'm going to rank the discography of one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band, King Crimson. I assume you already know who King Crimson are, so I'm not really going to go into much detail other than they are a prog band and one of the quintessential prog bands at that. But let's get the intro out of the way and start with the easiest S tier ever, that being In the Court of the Crimson King being S tier. This album is probably the first true prog album that isn't in the proto territory. Like it's not like Freak Out or Pet Sounds or any Moody Blues or early Soft Machine. And it's the first real one. This is it. This is what prog is. And it's a damn good album at that. 21st century, just the entire track list. 21st Century Schizoid Man, Epitaph, I Talk to the Wind. Probably that one's probably my favorite off this album. Title track, Moonchild to a lesser extent, even though I think that track is underrated. Uh, but no, this is a great album and easy S, so I won't spend much time on it. But let's move on to In the Wake of Poseidon, which a lot of people might disagree, but, well, no, a lot of people will disagree. I like this album more than In the Court. I think it's because I've listened to the Crimson King so much that it does not really do anything for me anymore. It's sort of not boring because it's an insanely good album. It's just I'm burnt out on In the Court of the Crimson King. So In the Wake for me is more enjoyable of a listen, but easy A tier. The album opens with pictures of a city, which sounds a lot like a Charles Mingus track. If Charles Mingus had a more rock side to him, as well as Candace and Cascade, beautiful song. Cat Food, this very frantic, jazzy sounding track. It's it's really good. I really wish this album was more appreciated. The Devil's Triangle, the 11-minute suite of just full Mellotron madness. I believe that it's the only track that's never been played live, actually, just because so much studio magic goes into that track. But other than that, title track's great. Piece of a theme. It's a nice little interlude. Of course, pretty much everyone is here. The lineup hasn't changed much, but releasing the same year in 1970 would be Lizard, another album which I personally enjoy more than In the Court. But I understand why people disagree for the most part. At least I think this is a very overhated album. But I think it's a great album. The intro track is amazing. Those heavy saxophones. I think they're saxophones. Circus, Indoor Games, Happy Family, Lady of the Dancing Water, and the title, Lizard, yeah, the title track being like this 23-minute suite, which will be is the longest and the only King Crimson track to cover a full side. In the studio canon, at least. I don't know, maybe there's some long live improv. But this is easily an A tier album. I would put this in S, but I'm trying to make this, just not because if I could, I just put every King Crimson album in S. Again, I love this band, so making this is already hard enough. But if I'm gonna be reasonable, A tier is the lowest I'll go. I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but no, Lizard's a fine, good album. Definitely the most jazziest album. This is just full on jazz rock, with some symphonic mellotrons thrown in. So it's a very unique album. There's not a lot of other prog albums that sound like it. Next up will be Lizard. I mean, not Lizard, Islands. Uh, Released in 1971, and this is a personal favorite of mine. This has to go in S. I actually, I'm sorry, A. I'm sorry if I got the Islands fans excited there, but only reason is just because I really only return to Formentera Lady and Sailor's Tale. Song of the Gulls is good. Title track is great. Letters, the whole album is great, really. I just don't really return to it a lot, but it's a fantastic album. I really love the spiritual soul jazz influence that this seems to have. Like, there's moments on here that sound straight out of Pharoah Sanders or Alice Coltrane, which is just, cool to think of, like a prog album mixing that type of jazz influence in. Just great that, that avant-garde jazz, I guess. I'm not the biggest expert on jazz subgenres, but definitely Pharoah Sanders feels present in this album. And while I like this album better than the next one, I have to put Larks above it just because it's done so much for the musical landscape. Like, the title track alone, there is slight hints of post-rock. There is the blueprint for both Tool and Primus, and is honestly just some fantastic avant-prog here. Probably their weirdest album. Their most, avant-garde experimental album. So I have to put it above Islands, even though I personally enjoy Islands more. But I understand why that this album is, like this. This video is also unscripted, so sorry if there's any little screw-ups in me speaking. But Larks is it's just great. The first intro track is 13 minutes and alone lays the blueprint for music that wouldn't be fully caught up until the 90s. And this came out in 1973. The Talking Drum is a post-rock song made in 1973. Easy Money. I don't remember if it's Easy Money X. Either way, these songs are just heavy. This is probably like one of their more heavier albums. I think this is just full-on proto-metal. Hell, I'd even go as far as to say this is just avant-garde metal at this point. That this album is just a beast. It's great. This may be controversial, but I'm gonna have to put Starless and Bible Black in B. Just cause I don't really return to it aside from The Great Deceiver. But don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic album. I personally don't really come back to it, but it's good. I like it's a good album. There is no bad King Crimson albums. Even at the lowest, they're still good. And a thing about this album is that most of this was improvised. I believe a lot of this stuff was just live, but it's considered a studio album by the band. So there's that. Not much to say about this. I kind of just forget about this album, really. I don't really come back to it again. Not bad. Not my favorite. And it's sandwiched between, Larks and Red. Red being just... What more needs to be said about Red? What the hell? I am so sorry about that. But, Red, easy S. This album, every track here. You could argue that Providence kills it, but I like Providence. I think it's a nice cool down, and it prepares you for the ride that is Starless. That is probably their best song as well. Starless is just crazy. Just the first half is this insanely cool ballad, and then it explodes into this jazz metal madness. It's great. One More Red Nightmare and Fallen Angel and Starless. These are I believe the only three tracks with actual lyrics in it. Providence and Red are instrumental, and so there's not a lot here, but all of this, the songs with lyrics. This is probably their best writing, is in this album, and it's great. There's just a lot of a lot of goodness here. It's a good album. I don't know what else to say. It's just a good album. But the band would go on like I think a 7-year hiatus and would come back with another S tier album. That being Discipline. Discipline is not only just a weird out. It's another heavy album. It is a math rocky album. Tool would take a lot from this album. Math rock would take a lot from this album. It's crazy. Primus would take another band that would take a lot from this album, and it's good. There's a lot of Talking Heads isms in these trilogies of albums. Adrian Belew is here, and Tony Levin, which these are, two crucial members that would join during this era. And they're great. Love the vocals here, sound like Talking Heads, but if the Talking Heads had a slight metal influence, this album's pretty heavy for being like weirdly a new wave album. Elephant Talk, fantastic opener. Talahu Jinjit, Frame by Frame, probably the most insane riff you'll ever hear. Mate Kudasai, very, laid back, relaxing track. In Discipline, The Sheltering Sky, and the title track. It's great. This is a great album, and I probably will put this over in the Court of the Crimson King. Like, the order that these are arranged, this is probably how I feel towards these albums. Let me rearrange these real quick. But yeah. Next up is an album that is not bad by any means, but I did find that this album was just a little disappointing when I was initially listening to their discography. The Beat album is it's an alright album. There's its moments. I think, it's much weaker compared to Three of a Perfect Pair and Discipline, but it has its moments. Requiem is a cool track. Neil Jacket Music is alright. Heartbeat. Satori in Tangier is great. Neurotica is great. Two Hands, The Howler, Requiem. I don't know what else needs to be said. Lots of the Fripatronics here are great. It's an alright album. I think easily I would say this is erring on the side of caution of being a B tier album, but I'll put it in C just because I don't really return to it often. But other than that, Three of a Perfect Pair, which I think is a huge step up compared to Beat. Model Man, the title track, Man with an Open Heart, No Warning, and Larks 3 are pretty, good. Even the bonus tracks, Industrial Zone A and B, and the Barbershop Quartet song is a great closer, which I wish was on the LP. But I think I'll put this in B, just because, lyrically wise, it's very much very much like Talking Heads, but especially compared to Beat and Discipline. I'm not saying you're gonna get a full Talking Heads record here, but the influence sort of shines more here. And now we're down to the last three albums, which I always considered to be a trilogy of its own. The I guess we'll call this the Tool trilogy, because this is when the band starts to sound like this. Even though I'd say all three albums have like different sounds to them, different flavors to them, I feel like they stand together for being this specific industrial metal sound. Next up is Thrack, which Walking on Air alone gives this B. This is a heavy album. I think, again, it takes what from the Discipline trilogy, sort of matures it a bit sound-wise, although I would have been fine if it just sounded like Discipline again. But, again, I'm not, complaining here. Walking on Air, Ba-Boom is just a Tool song. It sounds a lot like what Chocolate Chip Trip from the Fear Inoculum album would be. Vroom Vroom, Dinosaur, Thrack, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. Great. Other than that, I feel like there's like little shorter tracks in this album that sort of just split up the album and just make it not as, the flow as smooth as other albums, but it's not bad. It doesn't kill it in any way. But I really don't have much to say about this. Now, the Construction of Light is, I like the title track so much, but the rest of the album does not stand with it upon re-listening to it. I think the title track can easily be an A, hell, even an S tier track. But the rest of the album, it's okay. Like, Prozac Blues is like a weird, almost Tom Waits-like song. Into the Frying Pan is pretty cool, actually. Larks Part 4 sounds almost like a Muse song, so you take that as you will. The World's My Oyster Soup Kitchen Floor Wax Museum is pretty good. The Coda, I Have a Dream, I honestly don't remember it. That's just a cool title, that's why I brought it up. Heaven and Earth was a cool track. Other than that, though, like, the title track carries this album. It's so good. This is probably their second most math rock-ish album, or at least the title track is, but it's pretty math rock-ish. Like Red, there's very almost grungy like drums here, which I guess it's more impressive in Red considering that came out in 74, but just a little detail. And lastly, I'm going to put The Power to Believe in C tier, because honestly, it's not a bad album, but it's a very, it feels edgy. It's an edgy feeling album. Not that it's bad, but it just has this twisted sense to it. I also apologize if you hear a dog barking in the background. I hope the microphone doesn't pick that up. But, other than that, Electric, level 5, happy with what you have to be happy with is alright. Eyes Wide Open, did I mention Electric? Other than that, it's a fine guitar. Again, very Tool-like, except Tool sounds more, unique, I guess. Like, Tool has a much more cleaner sound. This sounds more gritty. But other than that, that is my ranking of King Crimson. If I had it my way, as in, if I just wanted to, I would just put all three A tier albums in S, but I'm trying to be reasonable here, and I think I did a good job with that. But I know Starless and Bible Black being in B is probably controversial, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Thank you for watching.